Representative Norma Hernandez with us this morning from the 77th District. Good morning, Ms. Hernandez. Welcome to Choose Views.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have you with us. And, right before you, we had President Toni Preckwinkle on the show talking about the work that she's doing here in the county and, of course, the region. And you yourself have been a pretty big, activist and making things happen here in recent weeks and months. So kudos to you and congratulations to you for being named the chair of the Illinois House Latinx Caucus. Way to go, Ms. Hernandez.
Thank you so much. It's been such an honor to not only, start a couple years ago, but, the responsibilities keep growing, but the impact also keeps growing too. So that's beautiful to witness.
Well, I mean, you're directly at the cause of that. I mean, tell our listeners and our followers a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are. I know the answer to that question, so I'd get an A and get to move to the front of the class. But I don't want to speak your story. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I was born and raised in the district that I represent in Elmhurst Park. My family's been in this community for 3 generations now. And I, first went to go to college and, go through that, journey as a first-generation college student. I worked in the foster care system for a couple of years as a foster care case manager and really was all over the city and worked in the South Side, especially in the Englewood community, and experienced community disinvestment differently, right, than me, from someone that comes from the suburbs, from Elmhurst Park. I ended up going back to school and got my master's in urban planning and public policy. And I was very fortunate to be mentored by Dr. Teresa Cordova from Great Cities Institute. And she hired me on full-time as an urban planner once I graduated. And that really created a lot of opportunities for me to understand policy, urban planning, and so many other things. I was able to write research reports and really get involved in a lot of academic studies throughout the city of Chicago and the region. And through that work, I got recruited to run for office. My first position that I got recruited for was for Trenton Community College Board, where I was the first Latina elected on that board. It was a big race, about 25 suburbs, a very contentious race, and I ended up winning by about 169 out of almost 40,000 votes. So it was a very close election. And I think that was a moment where a lot of people never knew didn't really know me or what I've done. And they were getting to know me in this race during COVID, right? It was right after COVID. I believe it was 2021. And I won. So given that, many folks started reaching out to me and really wanted me to think about running for this position, which is a state rep position. And the irony, too, is that I actually was working on a research report where I was documenting the Latino growth in the western suburbs in the past 10 years with the new census data that had come out. So it was a very hard conversation, but I understood the needs of my community given all of the work that I had already been doing as an urban planner. So it was hard to say no after being recruited, right, by folks that believed in me more than I believed in myself. And ever since then, I won this election, and I've been able to really focus on the things that I know our community needed that hadn't been there before.
That's a great story. I got to ask you this question. Well, I'm going to make a statement and then ask a question. What you just said in terms of believing in you more than you may have believed in yourself is a perfect example of the fact that we all stand on each other's shoulders or someone else's shoulders that help prop us up to get to the next level. And so I'm sure you are fully aware of the power of that. And so now you're in this position where a few votes got you basically across the finish line. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about voting registration, voting. We had a gentleman on, Greg Palast, who's a documentarian and movie producer. He talked about voter suppression, being active and alive in all parts of the country. Right. You know the importance of voting and the importance of voter registration, and that narrow margin shows that all votes do matter and all votes do count. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about that, because the fight right now is voter registration and voter suppression. And how are you, as now in this role, going to tackle that across all communities?
Yeah, and I think, to add to that, now with, we have all of these ICE raids, people are going to be opening their doors even less, right? Let's be real about the future of our elections and what door knocking does, right? That's usually door knocking is how you get to voters. But for me, I think the voter suppression and understanding about, why voting is so important, to me, that's why I believe community engagement is so important in anything that we do in terms of government. I myself have done a lot of community engagement research and worked with CPS schools in their civics department to enhance civics curriculum, because I do believe that it is about registering folks to vote. It is about getting folks to come out, but it goes deeper than that, right? We need to have a curriculum that is allowing us to understand how government works and why we need good government, right? And how we have the power to understand and control who gets elected, right? If we actually educate folks on the importance of this and get them to come out to vote. And I believe that now, especially here in the suburbs, there's not a lot of community engagement compared to the city. I've done a lot of work in the city, and we really need that community engagement here and in my community, which is why I really focus on that with all of the work that we do and all the events that we do. Because if you're not tapping into your community, then you're not building those relationships. They're not getting to know the work that you do, so they're not going to find a reason to want to come out to vote for you. They have to see you in the ground, right? They have to feel the work that you're doing, and then also get educated on why your position is important.
Wow. A big high five to you on that. I said this to Mayor Johnson recently. You've got to let people know what you're doing, and daily people need to know where you are, what's going on, because if they don't know, they will fill in the blank with their own thoughts, and in many cases misinformation and disinformation. And I appreciate you having taking a version of that to apply to where you are. So a couple of quick questions surrounding that. What are some of the things that you're doing to get that awareness out there and keep it high for the people that are in your community, that are in your district, to know what Representative Norma Hernandez is doing, what she's about? What are some of the things that you're tangibly doing?
Yeah, so a few things that I'm doing. One of them is I've had a youth council now for 3 years, where young people come to my office. We meet every month. They're assigned to go to board meetings for me, whether it's school board meetings, municipal board meetings, library board meetings, park district board meetings, on my behalf as my student reps. Or student ambassadors is what I call them. And we meet, I educate them on the importance of why we have to stay engaged in these meetings. And we've been able to talk to over 100 students already with the 3 years that I've been here, from all over different high schools in my district. That's one way, right? Because you have to get to the young people that aren't even voters yet, because they'll talk to their friends, right? And that's the goal of us, like wanting to have young people in my office. The other component is actual outreach, right? Canvassing, flyering. My interns, I have a few interns that every week they're assigned to go flyering. Right now, with everything that's happening, even just today, we have people scheduled to go flyer business districts in my area. Both English and Spanish, right? Language access is a huge component as well. And the other thing is through social media, making sure that you have an active social media. And when I mean active, I don't just mean posting something, right? But sharing things on those community pages. You have always folks sharing stuff all across. The other part also is having events, right, that are targeting specific folks. We have a retreat in my office. We actually just finished it a couple weeks ago, where we're power mapping, right? We are looking at the areas with the most need that we haven't had an event in yet. We're identifying those areas and making sure that we're doing extra outreach in those specific areas, because we want to make sure that we're hitting all of our parts.
That's the outreach part. I love the student ambassadors. I hope I'm calling it the interns that are the ambassadors. I mean, that's so critically important, and it's important because the younger voter that may or may not feel that they that they matter, not just their vote matters, but that they matter as a citizen of your district, of the state, of the larger U.S. population. We have to keep tapping into that. And I know that engagement is one of the key things. So kudos to you for having the vision and the insight. And I think some of that probably comes from your urban planning chops in terms of your educational background. Would I be fair in saying that?
Oh, yes. I mean, I've done participatory budgeting across Chicago for about 5 years. I did it with 8 aldermen. I did it with the city of Chicago during the COVID relief funds where we did community engagement on the budget. And then I did it with CPS schools and helped write a curriculum for them on how to do participatory budgeting with young people. And that's the thing, right, is participatory democracy. What does that mean? When you think about public dollars, community input is really important, right? You're giving people a say in how to spend money, real dollars. Participatory policymaking, right? You're giving people the opportunity to give you ideas for policies. But just getting folks involved in the process and understanding that they too have a say, I think is so critical. And that's why we ended up working with CPS, because we felt that if we can do this with actual curriculum in the schools and give young people money on how to spend to enhance their school community, that is already giving young people the opportunity to understand that they have a say. They get to vote on these projects, and then once they vote, change happens, right? You're creating those habits early on, so when they come out of school, they are understanding that and are naturally going to want to become voters.
Yeah, they want to become voters. They want to become participants. They want to bring more of their colleagues and cohorts into the mix. And I'm so proud of the work that you're doing in terms of reaching out to young folks and letting them know they have a say. Here's how you use and wield that power in a way that's effective for so many people. Representatives, as we wrap up, I'll say this and then we'll come back. We're definitely going to have you back on because I love what your take on working with the younger voters. And I think it can be prototypical in terms of what other elected officials can be doing, certainly in my mind, to help to bring younger voters into the mix. It's tangible stuff. It's local. It's like right here, down the street, those 10 businesses, that strip mall. I want you in there talking to them about what's going on. I mean, I don't mean to speak to what you're doing, but you're literally, kind of empowering the young folks, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. And they're coming in and you're creating a base, right, of folks that have energy, that want to canvas, that are asking me then later for recommendation letters to go to college, right? I've done so many already in the past few years. So it's a win-win, and you have to tap into that. Absolutely.
That's great. Last question, in terms of how you're working with other caucus leaders or heads of caucuses and other communities of color and communities that have in some ways been marginalized. How are you coordinating and working with, the Asian caucus, the Black caucus, women's caucuses and such to have that partnership that Ms. Preckwinkle talked about?
Yeah, one of the things that I think is really important is just having communication. Having those communication conversations that don't feel transactional. I think at the end of the day, our caucuses understand what the needs are, especially those that are assigned to go into leadership, right? There has to be a level of understanding of the reality of where we're at and the reality of the needs that exist. And for me, it's important that I express that to my colleagues that yes, representation is my priority. Yes, Latino needs to be at the table, but I'm willing to have conversations with other folks from other communities so we can be fair on how we're going to address the budget deficit that we have, right? How are we going to make sure that all of us get something for our communities where one doesn't feel they get more than the other?
Yeah, that's great to hear. Representative Norma Hernandez, y'all. She's from the 77th District here in Illinois, one of the local leaders that's sending a message out that's a national message about bringing our youth together, helping inspire them, keeping them moving forward, and then working with other colleagues in the state to make sure that we have a better place here in Illinois. Representative, it's been a pleasure to have you with us this morning. I really look forward to having you back to kind of give us an update. As the weather changes, we know that our young folks are going to be out and about, and love to get your take on some of the things that you're doing to help them in that space. So will you join us again in the future?
I'd love to. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Representative Norma Hernandez, thanks for being with us this morning. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk with you soon.
Thank you so much. You too.
All
Take
right.
care.
Bye now.